Hi everyone, and welcome back to the digital stage here at Sustainability Live. I'm excited to introduce our next guest, Evelyn Nassar. She is the director of the Cocoa Horizons program. She'll go into a lot more detail about that in her session, so please welcome her to the stage.
Good afternoon to all of you. I'm Evelyn Nassar, very happy to be here speaking to you at the Sustainability Live. Over the next 20 minutes, I will talk about the cocoa supply chain, the context for sustainability, what is Barrical about, and also Cocoa Horizons. So let me start with the cocoa crop context. The cocoa crop is a very seasonal crop. It has a main crop and a mid crop. It's only grown around the equator. It has about 5 million smallholder farmers worldwide. And as you see in the picture, it's a very manual way of harvesting as well. There is almost 70% of the world's cocoa supply that comes from two origins, from Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. Most of the farms are actually located in very remote places with very poor infrastructure. And there is also very low productivity because of poor agricultural practices, because of old trees, and also because of nutrient depleted soil as well. So this makes obviously sustainability not an easy task. Let me now talk to you about why sustainability then a need basically in our industry. For chocolate, when chocolate is growing and the demand is increasing, there is obviously a need to secure the supply in the future. There is, of course, all of these problems that need to be tackled. The first of all is actually farmer poverty, which is also in a way an effect of poor productivity. This also sometimes results into child labor, so children working in the farm to help parents. There is also deforestation, farmers cutting trees to gain some income, and there is also climate change that obviously affects as well productivity. So all of these elements are key issues that we are addressing in the cocoa industry. When I talk about Barry Callebaut, I want to explain that this is first of all the world player in cocoa and chocolate. It's basically a company that it's buying about 1/4 of the world crop, and that it's basically present along the supply chain, as you see in the picture there. It does not own any plantations, but it's basically sourcing about 65-70% directly from the farmers. There is obviously the processing part of all these cocoa beans, which transforms into semi-finished products, and then it's sold to food manufacturers or to professional users in the form of chocolate or cocoa products as well. The company has about 2 million tons of product sold. It's about 7 billion revenue, and it's growing about 5 to 7% on a yearly basis, while the crop is basically rather flat or growing 1% on average per year. We have about 12,000 employees, 60 factories around the world, and the company is present in 1 out of 4 cocoa or chocolate products worldwide. This is why for the company it's so important to ensure that in the future there is basically cocoa, otherwise there is no chocolate. In 2012, because of this, the company decided to introduce sustainability as one of the key strategic pillars, as you see there. We also created the ambition in 2016 to basically make sustainable chocolate the norm. This is the ambition that was called Forever Chocolate. It has very bold and ambitious targets, but it is obviously the way to get to sustainable cocoa and sustainable products as well in the future. When we move on, also in 2015, the company created the Cocoa Horizons Foundation as a preferred vehicle to deliver on that sustainability ambition. The reason why this was created was very simple. The customers were buying chocolate products or cocoa products, paying a sustainability premium. And in order to create transparency how those premiums were used, basically the foundation is an independent organization, third-party verified, and with all the transparency of how the money is used. This created a lot of credibility and a lot of interest from customers as well, to have something that they could trust, that they could see progress, and that they could also support as well in the future. So the Cocoa Horizons Foundation, as I mentioned, has been there since 2015. And the main purpose of the foundation is to improve cocoa farmers' livelihoods around the world. There are three key areas where the Cocoa Horizons program is focused, and these are the areas that I mentioned before as the key issues in the cocoa supply chain. We have on one side productivity, we have environment, and we have also the community. And most of the activities that are done through the program are with the idea to make sure that the farmers are actually self-sustaining in the future, meaning we are helping them with bottom-up activities that will help to help themselves in the future. It is not just giving a fish to someone, but teaching them how to fish. We have different elements that we are applying also within the program we have. In the Prospering Farmers, as I mentioned, the main point is that there is low productivity because of also of bad agricultural practices. There is also basically lack of investment also in the farms. And therefore, what we started to do is, first of all, to learn about our farmers, to learn about their socioeconomic profile, to be able to be more targeted also on how we invest the budget that we have. We also know that most of the farmers have been trained since many years, so we wanted to go one step beyond and prove that theoretical knowledge through a graduation, and then start to do much more personalized coaching to them. So having people going to their farm, doing observations, but also coming up with a plan that will help them to increase their income over a certain period of time if they were investing in certain practices and in certain product services as well. We also help them to have access to these finance and farm services because for many of them it's actually not easy to afford. And in some cases, we actually go even a bit beyond, where we are very recently even subsidizing the labor. Some of the work that needs to be performed in their farms, we are actually paying for that so that they can really see that benefit and then be able to invest in the future. We are also helping them with distribution of cocoa and non-cocoa seedlings. All of these activities should actually lead to a higher yield on cocoa. At the same time, we don't want the farmers to be too dependent on cocoa price volatility, which is clearly there. And therefore, we are also supporting them with some income diversification activities, which altogether should lead to a higher income. There is still a lot of, or there are still a lot of farmers under the poverty line, and our main goal is really to lift them, to support them to get above poverty line, and hopefully at some point also to a living income level. If I move on now to the next pillar, which is the child labor approach, we have in this case about 1.5 million children in the total cocoa supply chain working in the farms, which is called child labor. The definition of child labor is when it's basically affecting the physical or the intellectual capability of the children. It's not forbidden for children to support their families or to help, but it is not good when it's involving chemicals, or where it's involving sharp tools, and where it's really long hours, when it's for them not possible to go to school. These are the kind of things that we are basically trying to eradicate. So the way also we tackle this is by first also collecting data about the farmers, doing a risk analysis, because the budget we have is limited. We cannot cover all the supply chain with the budget. Therefore, we identify the hotspots and where we can actually invest, or we should invest more as well from the start. We do awareness, sensitization events. It's very important to know that in some cases we realize that the families or the parents were not aware that what they were asking the children to do was actually not good for their development. So sometimes this awareness is already a great step. And we do it in many innovative ways. For example, we have a big truck, a Cocoa Horizons truck, that goes to every single community, and basically it displays a movie where the whole community could watch, could actually understand. And at the end, there is even a party that everybody enjoys as well. Or we do it also via radio. There are radio programs where we can actually also create that awareness and sensitize not only the the children and the families, but also the people in the community that at the end should also be accountable for all of this. We are then, once we identify the hotspots or the high risk areas, we are doing more specific surveys, more specific monitoring to make sure that we really pick out the cases that need to be treated. And those child labor cases, if they are really the worst forms of child labor, would be reported to the authorities. So far, we don't really have some of these, and here I'm talking about slavery cases. Locally, we haven't identified any in our supply chain, but hazardous work we have, and we report that very openly also in our full year report. We then do remediation, which is basically specific activities depending on the type of situation we have identified, that could go from a birth certificate to school kits to bridge classes, etc. Again, depending on the situation. We also do some additional investments or interventions in terms of community action plans, for example, helping the community to figure out what is missing in order to have less child labor in the community, or income generating activities, or savings also for the villages, that women can also be empowered and create probably an additional source of income for the family. We then do monitoring and follow up of the cases we have identified over a certain period of time to ensure that they are really out of child labor. And then the idea is that this process is transferred gradually to the community and to the farmer groups, to the cooperatives, so that at the end we actually are leading to zero child labor. If I move on to the thriving nature pillar, we do have a mapping of all the farms that we are sourcing from. This is first of all with the objective to ensure that all the cocoa we are buying actually is not coming from protected areas. We are also looking into deforestation. We are working on sensitization of environmental protection also with the different communities and with the farmers. We are investing on nurseries and cocoa and native tree distribution as well. We are looking into agroforestry in order to have better yields and also to avoid that the farmers are moving to the forest to have more cocoa, so that they can get more output out of the existing plantation they have. We also invest in green energy, like cookstoves, for example, or solar panels. And we are also doing some investments on landscape projects such as forest restoration, as forest protection as well, mainly in West Africa as well. All of this should lead actually to no deforestation and having a climate resilient farming. We have a lot of people on the ground, which is also what gives a lot of credibility to the program we are doing. We are talking about a significant number of farmers, and therefore the more coaches, the more professional workers we have, the more touch points we can have with them as well. So we do have, in particular in Ivory Coast and Ghana, a significant number of these coaches that are visiting the farms between 3 to 5 times a year. Again, with the idea to really support the farmer with some technical advice, but also monitoring how things are being implemented as well. And of course, there is additional resources related to how the supervision of those people on the ground, but also helping to work with the farmer groups. It's also an important part of the resources we invest, and of course some overheads that help us to manage the program as well, and to monitor, to control the budget, etc. as well. If I move on now, more talking about specific impact, there is first of all the way how we have expanded so far, that shows also the scope or the reach that we have with the Cocoa Horizons program. In 2017-18, the Cocoa Horizons Foundation had a total income of 15 million. Back then, the program was focused on basic training for farmers and also investing on community infrastructure. Was reaching about 80,000 farmers in 2 origin countries. It represented about 15% of the total Barry Callebaut sustainable volume. Today, we are already at 35 million income. We are focusing on the 3 areas that I mentioned before. We are reaching more than 200,000 farmers with the program, and we are present already in 7 origin countries. And this is almost 30% of the sustainable volume. And we definitely want to do more. Our ambition is by 2025 to have a total income of 100 million. Of course, the more income we have, the more farmers we can reach. And therefore, we aim or we target to reach about 400,000 farmers, potentially expanding to a couple of countries more as well, and represent about 40%, if not more, of the total company volume as well. It's an ambitious target, but we do see a lot of interest from many customers because they see obviously the impact that it's the clear result of this program, and because it offers also a much more flexible solution than a certification. We are able to adapt the activities as we see results, and we can do it in a more dynamic way as well than a certification that would obviously be much more lengthy in adapting the standard as well. We also report year on year on the progress we have made. There is a third-party verification that is done by PwC in this case, where they are basically validating that the activities we are talking about, the claims we are making, are actually valid. So they assure this on a yearly basis, and we report also on the different areas the progress we have made. This is information that is publicly available, published on our website, and where you can see also as a customer whether the program is moving in the right direction or whether some areas are obviously a bit more challenging as well. But this is also a way to prove how is the budget being invested, and again, how are the farmers being also supported with all these different activities as well. If I move to the next one, it's not only about the reporting, but it's also about the positive feedback that we have received from farmers also in the different origins. And here I just wanted to portray a few examples. But we have from different countries, depending on different interventions, some very very good comments about we find this helpful. Like in Cameroon, having a radio program that it's really talking about all these issues. People found it something innovative and interesting to hear. You can also actually call, answer some questions, gain some promotional articles even. In Ivory Coast, we started to push for a digital cash premium payment. Before, it was all done in cash, which obviously has obviously risk in terms of security, for example. In this way, the farmer knows that he's receiving this and he doesn't need to be carrying the cash with him or with her. In Ecuador, we did the mapping of the farms via drone. So the farmers were very excited to see their farm from the sky. And obviously with this, you can create a more detailed farmer business plan. And in Indonesia, I think the farmer business plan has been also great support that they get, where they see how will the farm and would their income look like in the next few years if they would apply certain specific products, or if they would change some specific practices, if they would invest more, if they would invest less. So these are some very positive feedback that we have received, and very, very good examples of some of the interventions we do through the program. We cannot do all of this alone as well. So we have basically been part of some industry partnerships that help us to drive stronger results. There is here two examples that I wanted to mention today. One is CLE, which is a child labor and education facility, which has been led by the Jacobs Foundation. And it's basically many players in the industry participating, and also including the government of Ivory Coast. And the target is basically to build schools and to support education over the next 5 to 10 years, and reaching, of course, many more children than if we do it on individual basis, each company. And the other one, we know that many of the farmers do not have land tenure documentation, and therefore for them it's also relatively difficult sometimes to invest, because they don't know where their land will be theirs in the future. So helping them to secure this is also a key element for us, or a key enabler to again to drive all of those elements and productivity, as we mentioned before. And therefore, we created CLAP, which is basically a partnership to create land documentation, land tenure documentation for farmers in Ivory Coast as well. This is a partnership together with Hershey and with Unilever. Meridia is the implementing partner, and we are also partnering together with a government agency. The goal here is to reach about 9 to 10,000 farmers with land documentation in a shorter period of time, but also in a more affordable way. And we expect to have also the first results already starting this year. And to come up to the close of my presentation, there is the way to attract also more customers to help us get to reach more farmers is offering a solution that it's basically tackling all the key elements that are critical for all the players in the supply chain. This is addressing all different requirements, meaning it on living income, on child labor, on women empowerment, on deforestation, but also on traceability. So being a one-stop shop definitely attracts a lot of demand and makes it also easier for a customer to be able to meet all of those requirements. And with this, I would like to thank you for listening, and I'm open to questions.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Evelyn, for your session today. We've actually got a little bit of time now, obviously, for a Q&A. So I've made note throughout your session, and I thought I had a few exciting things to ask you because it's a really interesting topic. I wanted to kind of start looking at the cocoa industry as a whole, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about these reports that you put out, and obviously how important they are to the sector, and how important it is that you're transparent and you kind of share this information. So tell me exactly how that is for you and how it is to be transparent and what it means to the industry.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. The more we share learnings, I think the easier it is also for the industry to move forward. So as I said before, we cannot do it alone, and therefore leveraging on all the expertise, on the learnings, on the failures, I think is the best way, obviously, to to accelerate the impact. And also, again, sometimes even combining investments makes it obviously much more powerful than working on isolated basis. Not
Yeah,
easy because
absolutely.
sometimes it's competition, but it's definitely a must.
Yeah, and absolutely. And it's something I wanted to focus on a little bit there was kind of what has been happening in the past few years, obviously with the COVID pandemic. It has been a catalyst for some industries, but it's been kind of a challenge for others. So I wanted to know if there was kind of any negative impacts on the cocoa industry or just sustainability as a whole because of COVID.
I think some of the restrictions we actually also saw in some of the activities we had to implement with farmers. For example, we do have some of these group, community sensitization, which couldn't take place. Normally, sometimes we have, between 100 to 200 people gathering together in this type of event. So now we had to limit it to relatively small group of people, maximum 20 or so. So that obviously limited our reach, and it didn't really help to create that awareness as fast as we wanted. Nevertheless, I think we found solutions, as I said, via radio, for example, or more, with messages and so on via the phone. But yeah, I think that is probably one of the main restrictions we really faced.
Yeah, and something I really wanted to delve into actually is obviously everything that's happening is amazing so far, and every little step is an improvement, and I think that's great. But are there anything that are kind of seen as challenges that are stopping this kind of acceleration? What can actually be done to accelerate these efforts that are happening in the cocoa industry?
I think something that could definitely help us to accelerate is having much more support from different countries. From consuming countries on one side, I think we have seen from the EU there is clear legislation, for example, now coming on deforestation. So that really helps to push things forward in a faster way. There are a lot of country-specific commitments as well that obviously help us as well. From Belgium, there is from the Netherlands, from Germany, on having sustainable chocolate, within a shorter period of time. So that helps really to bring the standard higher. most of the customers basically want to meet those requirements, and therefore they are interested in investing earlier. We do not see that yet from emerging markets, and that I think is where we definitely, some of this acceleration would be very helpful. And I think also from origin countries, from where cocoa is grown, I think more, support or stronger support from government will always be welcome as well. There is already a lot of commitment from their side, but I think we definitely need to see how can we accelerate certain things. Again, the goal is really to have sustainable cocoa as the norm.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask, actually, off the back of that, is sustainable cocoa a topic that you think isn't spoken about enough? Do you think there needs to be, obviously, you're doing your best, but do you think there needs to be any more awareness brought to it?
I think there is already quite some awareness. There is actually a lot of, a lot of articles, a lot of documentaries also out there talking about, some of these issues, being it child labor, forced labor, deforestation. So I think awareness is there. Sometimes it is a lot, putting it probably in a very raw way without really talking about the different activities and support behind. I mean, it's a huge task that we have here, so it's not easy to solve, and it's not going to be solved also in a couple of years. It needs time. For us, I think it's important to create awareness also of the of the consumer sometimes, that it's sometimes not about excluding farmers that potentially would have child labor as an example, but rather working with them to solve it. Excluding them will basically push them into the wrong direction. So it's more about how do we help to solve the root problems that I think everybody should be aware of, and how can we contribute to that from different angles.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's kind of the end of the Q&A I had. So if there's anything else you'd like to add or share with our audience, then yeah, feel free. You have a few more minutes, but if not, it was really lovely to meet you, and it was great to have you on the stage today.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation, and very, very happy to be here at the Sustainability Live as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Evelyn. And thank you everyone for watching. Stay tuned for more sessions just like this about sustainability.